Welcome back to another episode of the Makers Podcast. My guest on today's show is Charlotte Yarkoni, the Corporate Vice President at Microsoft, who looks after growth and ecosystems. I couldn't wait to interview Charlotte, so I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's dive into the interview. So Charlotte, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. And you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Let's start off. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
Oh, I had a multi-grain bagel.
Nice. Was it nice?
It was very good. I still have carbs in my life because I actually ride horses in my spare time, and have found that the low carb lifestyle just doesn't work when I need to go out and exercise and sweat. So bagels are good. Bagels are pretty much a staple for my breakfast.
It sounds good. And what is the one thing you wish you did before you turned 20?
The one thing I wish I did, I wish I had traveled around the world sometime during my college career, taken a break sometime in there.
And what is your favorite company right now, apart from Microsoft?
My favorite company? Ooh. You know, I am actually a big fan of Netflix, which is quite a mature company at this stage, but I was one of the early adopters of Netflix. And in my household, we have all the streaming services, but we're very much a visual group and love anything that's a documentary or a series or a movie. That's a lot of our family time is watching things like that together. And Netflix has been something, we travel a lot. We've actually lived abroad, and it's been a staple in our life for many years now. So it continues to be one of my favorite companies.
Awesome. And are you a morning person or night owl?
Oh, night owl, for sure.
Facebook or Twitter?
Twitter.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. Come on now.
And what is the one thing you do in the morning, the first thing you do in the morning?
Drink coffee. It's very bad when I don't drink coffee because I have a hard time functioning without it, I'm afraid to say.
Awesome. So for our audience who don't know anything about you, could you just summarize your career to date in 2 minutes?
Sure. So I'm currently Corporate Vice President of Commerce and Ecosystems at Microsoft. I have always been in the tech industry, although I've worked for a variety of different companies. I started out as an engineer. I've managed very large teams. I've been CEO of a startup. I've managed end-to-end businesses on behalf of larger businesses or boards, and have had the opportunity to kind of work with technology across a variety of industries. So the way I best describe my career is I have been able to do a little bit of a lot of things across a very broad landscape where technology has always been the common seam or the common thread by which I focused my work and my job on. But I feel very fortunate in that regard.
And you are currently Vice President at Microsoft for Ecosystems. Tell us more about your role and what are you currently doing?
Yeah, so my actual title is just on the technicality, it's Commerce and Ecosystem. In a moment, I'm really responsible for looking at how do we answer 3 core questions for our customers. And it really is about the customer journey across our products and services with an emphasis on our cloud platform, Azure. But the 3 questions I look to answer are, first and foremost, how do customers discover us? And when I say customers, it could be someone in university or someone in high school. It could be an entrepreneur thinking about starting their company. It could be a developer in their basement at 2:00 in the morning that's just writing some games for fun, or it could be an enterprise developer. In all those aspects, how do we make sure that we're easy for them to discover who we are and what we do? And we spend a lot of time and energy thinking about that in terms of an ecosystem approach. So we do have a set of programs and investments that we do for students, for startups, for partners, for industries, and they're all kind of grounded in how do we think about developers more broadly and what's important to developers where we need to be helping and adding value. That's the first question. The second question is, once they discover us, how do they engage with us? And again, we have teams set up by ecosystem and by community in terms of creating presence and engagement, mostly through a set of online assets where we have for example, a learning platform called Microsoft Learn, where you can go on and get educated and actually create your own programs on our cloud, so on and so forth. We run all the documentation. So my team runs docs.microsoft.com for all the products across the company. That's really the main landing spot for all of our content and outreach that we have in that regard. We also have people who are physically located throughout the world where we focus on, how do we engage with them either at first or third party events, if we need to do some on-site hackathons or training, et cetera, et cetera. And then once we've answered that question, we then move to how do we just get easier to do business with? And that's really where the commerce part of my title comes in, because I am responsible for all the commercial engines that we transact across the company, across all the products and across all the channels we sell through, where a lot of that work today is focused on how do we just get easier to do business with. And a lot of the investments we're making for tomorrow are how do we think about enabling new and differentiating business models, either around our products or our products bundled with partner products to create value for our customers. So that's my job.
Awesome. So you talk about there, how do people find you and to make it easier? The world is changing very fast. So how do you scale and sustain the next generation of Microsoft users, and how can they find you?
Well, so first and foremost, I think it's really important to meet people where they are. And so in today's landscape, that's usually online. And I think, making yourself available and localized so that you can be accessible to anybody who wants to learn about you is kind of step one. And when we think about everything we do online, we do try to localize. For example, our documentation is localized in, I think, 64 different languages today. We do try to localize globally across, at a minimum, a core of 17 different language bases that we look at. And so first thing you do when you want to just know who we are is you can go to docs.microsoft.com and search on any product or service that you want. If you're actually looking for a specific area, let's pick on our cloud. So azure.microsoft.com. That kind of tells you everything about it, gives you easy access links to documentation, to a marketplace where all our partners are. We do try to make it pretty seamless and pretty accessible, starting with an online presence that's localized for folks. I think in addition to that, we also try to show up in the communities where we need to be contributing. And so whether that's, again, online communities like GitHub or Stack Overflow, actually showing up and paying attention to the commentaries and things like in forums like Hacker News, that's really important to be part of that. But it's also important to actually be part of the community. So if you're big into containers, you tend to pay attention to the containers forums like KubeCon for Kubernetes and showing up there, right? And making sure that you're available and accessible to people who want to learn more about what you are doing with containers, not just with your platform, but across the industry is super important as well. So we do a variety of things to make sure that we show up, and we are trying to make it equally easy to find us if you just want to get online and access us that way.
And for you personally, what new projects are Microsoft working on? And what are maybe some of the challenges Microsoft are facing right now in the new generation we are living in?
Well, I spend a lot of my time on the business models and how do people actually want to buy and consume, particularly in the cloud world. So, cloud was a pretty transformational thing for the industry because in essence, what it did is it created a new consumption model where people could buy IT resources by the drip. And that actually changed the level of efficiency well beyond just IT, right? It enabled anyone who needed a certain function or feature to not actually have to go get compute resources and dedicate them. And if you're a business, set them up in a data center and put them behind a firewall and get an administrator. You could actually just consume that stuff as you needed it. And as a result of that, it actually changed the way people wanted to buy those resources and manage those resources. And so I spend a lot of time on that today because I do think that world is continuing to evolve and shape, and what customers actually want and how they want it and when they want it and how they want to manage it continues to be much more of a seamless activity, particularly in the enterprise space. I also think on the other side, in terms of new technologies coming down the road and new shifts, AI is a very big one for us at Microsoft, where we don't view AI as a standalone set of features or products or platforms. It really is a capability that needs to be woven into everything that we do, because technology is becoming much more of an enablement. It is not, a back office or a backroom kind of activity. People are starting to actually think about AI and machine learning as to what are the capabilities they need to make their lives easier. And when you think about it from a technology standpoint, it has some pretty significant ramifications in terms of what is coding going to look like, right? In 5 years from now, because you're going from an instruction set type of coding to a rules-based type of coding, which has kind of been the shift and evolution we've been in, to actually one where the code itself is not going to necessarily have rules. It's going to be able to take data, create a set of insights from data, and then craft new actions for that data. And that's going to open up a whole new world of possibilities and technologies and innovations that I think, if you're a technology company, not just Microsoft, you get really excited when you think about the possibility of that. And then you couple it with other advancements like quantum computing, which is, again, exponentially increasing the amount of horsepower and resources you can apply to that type of computing model. And it creates so many new opportunities for how technology can enable just about everything in life. And so most of my time is spent on thinking through how do people want to consume and buy and use resources today, but it's with the forward thinking of what are those new innovations that are coming out and how is technology going to continue to enhance just about everybody's life, and what can we do to make that an easier experience from a consumption level.
What new innovations are you seeing right now in Microsoft?
Oh, we have new innovations all the time. I think on our cloud side, we continue to focus a lot on not just serving the programming languages that we support today, but also the newer programming languages like Python and Go that are very much related to those AI capabilities. I think advanced AI capabilities is another big area around that. We spend a good bit of time, I think, on the gaming side. It's a pretty exciting time to be in the gaming world. And as you know, Microsoft's got a big investment there with this Xbox platform, but it's also been working towards, again, creating more gaming experiences as it moves forward. Across our experience and devices side, our Surface tablets and our Surface Pros have been a big hit. I actually was a pretty serious MacBook user, and I have to freely admit I love my Surface these days. I actually forgave both my iPad and my MacBook for that, and we continue to do enhancements in that regard on that. So we have lots of stuff going on. I'm having a hard time even parsing out a couple of the ones, because one of the wonderful things about Microsoft is it's a very large company with a very diverse portfolio. And as someone who came from a lot of smaller companies as part of their background, I think Microsoft is by far the biggest company I've worked for, other than very early in my career where I worked at IBM. Very excited about the opportunities across a landscape that large, just even within the company, if that makes sense.
And do you find it quite difficult going into corporates from a startup, from a culture point of view?
I think there are different pressures and priorities that you face. I do actually think startups aren't for everyone. There are a lot of people who struggle with the ambiguity and chaos and volatility that comes with being with a startup. And there are a lot of people who struggle with the structure and maturity that comes with being a large company. I oddly enough, have appreciated both aspects of my career, and I've done both of those as part of my career. I think understanding how to have the right impact for the company is a big part of any job for any person. And when you're at a startup, it is typically a much more immature place and with a much fewer set of resources to be applied to it. And anyone can have a massive impact, positive or negative. And you have to be very thoughtful about that. You have to be willing to take risks. But you also have to be willing to be fully invested in making sure the company moves forward.
So what is the culture like inside Microsoft, and what are some of the perks of working for such a big tech company?
One of the things that I have been super impressed by, and I think part of this is I have been in the industry a long time, and I think when I started out working as a young person and as an individual contributor and an engineer, it was very much about, I really enjoyed solving problems, but I also enjoyed getting a paycheck and paying the bills that I had, college debt, et cetera, et cetera. As I've grown older and been able to kind of evolve my career and get some maturity along the way, hopefully, it has become much more important to me to work for a company that has a social responsibility and really a level of integrity that the products and services that it offers, ultimately leave the world in a better place than where it was before they were there. And that is very much the Microsoft spirit that I have felt. I think our CEO has a lot of sincerity and does a fantastic job, better than me, when he articulates the values and the culture at Microsoft, and it being very much about social responsibility and making sure that we do leave the world in a better place than we find it. I can tell you, I've been at Microsoft about 2.5 years at this point, and I feel that. I see it embodied every day at my job, and I think that's a fantastic thing. It really is a big part of my job satisfaction, working for a company that has those kind of values. In terms of the work culture, you will find a lot of smart people in whatever room you find yourself in that are genuinely concerned about solving customer problems. And I also really appreciate that too. So for me, it's been a very positive experience.
And you just mentioned that your CEO, what is he like behind closed doors?
The same as he is in front of public doors. He's a very warm individual. He's very approachable. He's very thoughtful. He's very cerebral in terms of how he thinks about problems. I really appreciate it because I have had the opportunity to spend a good bit of time with him in various product reviews or business reviews, or even in a couple of one-on-one settings. When he thinks about solving a problem, he thinks about it not just from, okay, what problems are we solving? What value are we creating? Versus, are there any unintended consequences that we need to be thoughtful about and avoid when we do this? And so the way he approaches the business and just about every aspect of the business is very well-rounded and very, very thoughtful and with a lot of integrity. And aside from that, he's just a very nice guy. So I enjoy him tremendously.
Awesome. And I have to ask, so have you met one of the original founders, Bill Gates?
I have met Bill Gates. I'm not personal friends with Bill Gates, but he does still show up, and I have sat in a few meetings and engagements with him. And he too is a very thoughtful guy. I think that goes without statement. And I think shares the same value that Satya does, if not was sort of the original genesis that interwove that within the company, which is, how do we make the world a better place? I think that is very much part of his character, and obvious is self-evident by his work that he's done, not just at Microsoft, but through his foundation, post him being CEO of Microsoft. So another really, really smart guy for sure.
So Microsoft is trying to do a lot of things, but how are you going to support the next generation of entrepreneurs? As a lot of people want to become entrepreneurs nowadays.
Look, I think entrepreneurs are what shape the future. And so it's kind of critical that all the technology companies, not just Microsoft, play a role in making sure that the ecosystems that cultivate entrepreneurs, usually startup ecosystems, but they're also developer communities, university communities, life learner communities of any sort, that we constantly encourage that type of thinking, that we make sure those ecosystems are healthy across the globe, not just in any one area, that we are not just contributing things like credits and sponsorships to specific programs, but committing our time and our energy and our people to making sure that we help those ecosystems along. That's my personal view on it, and that's a lot of what we try to drive in the various ecosystem programs that we run. Because for me, it's not about owning an ecosystem. It's about making sure that the ecosystem is healthy and thriving. And if you do that, good things come. That's been proven over time and is a perpetual principle by which I think the startup ecosystem continues to grow and mature. And, I just got back from a trip to Israel, and actually the one company I was CEO of was originally founded in Israel, the one startup I'm referring to. And I've been in and out of that ecosystem probably for the last 20 years in some capacity, working with a company that was headquartered over there, managing a company that was originally headquartered over there, or working with someone that had an engineering team over there, any one of those combinations. And it's amazing to me how that ecosystem has really grown and is thriving in the short time that I've been in and out of it, particularly around startups. I mean, the innovation coming from there is just fantastic and amazing. And I am very, very excited to be part of it, however I am part of it. And, I think Microsoft feels the same way. And so we look at all the ecosystems globally. UK has another exciting ecosystem. Amsterdam does, throughout the US, Asia, even in places like Australia. It's just a super interesting time. And I think making sure those ecosystems are functioning and healthy and thriving and helping where we can is really the main premise of what we're focused on.
And for those cities or cultures or even ecosystems who don't even have access to Wi-Fi or they don't even have a computer, how does Microsoft plan to disrupt that and change that?
Well, I think we have a variety of initiatives. We actually have a pretty large philanthropic group that's led by our president, Brad Smith, who's also quite vocal on a lot of socioeconomic things that we're involved with. So whether it's around supporting low-cost broadband in a certain region and or supporting education in other regions, Microsoft spends a good bit of time on that. And within my group, we also spend a lot of time on the innovations and supporting the entrepreneurs who are actually trying to work on solving some of those social responsibilities. One of the funnest parts of my job is running this thing we call Imagine Cup, and it long predates me. I think we're on our 16th or 17th year at Microsoft. But it is basically a Shark Tank style competition that we run, where we canvass universities across the globe. People self-form teams. We do give them access to our platforms and products and some resources to go build a solution to solve a problem. And then they compete at a local, regional, national, and ultimately international level for a set of cash and prizes that we offer. And it's quite an exceptional thing to be part of, because the types of problems that the young minds of today are solving are all just amazingly astounding to me. They're really grounded in global society needs. A lot of them are around how to help people with disabilities, how to help healthcare and science to cure diseases that have not yet been cured, how to think about enabling society in low cost or inaccessible regions. I mean, it's amazing, amazing stuff. And so, and just understanding what are the problems that our youth is thinking about solving today, to go look up Imagine Cup and see some of the previous winners. Last year we had folks that had built an app that if you had a hearing aid, for example, it would filter out the ambient noise so that you could actually focus on a conversation in a public place. And as part of that, they also recognized, that there were some applied uses for their application for kids with autism who also struggle with ambient noise. There was someone who built a way to take a low-cost prosthetic and actually add some AI to it so that it could actually perform basic functions for families who can't afford a $60,000 bionic prosthetic, right? Or if you're a young child that's going to have to change out of your prosthetic as your body grows. I mean, just really, really amazing, amazing stuff that comes out of there. It really, really excites me in terms of the possibilities and what we are starting to focus on as a society with each generation.
Amazing stuff. And what does Microsoft look like in the next 5 years? And how are you going to be different to some of your competitors, such as Amazon, Facebook, Google, who are all working on similar projects?
Yeah, look, I hope Microsoft has already differentiated itself. I mean, there's a technology component where we each offer certain things that we do well or better than the others. But I think Microsoft has taken a strong stance again on the social responsibility that we feel we have, meaning we aren't going to use other people's data for our purposes. It's their data and it's theirs to use, right? We are going to focus on AI for good, and not just AI for any use case as a capability set that we want to cultivate and invest in. And so I think the moral compass that we've applied to ourselves and how we are showing up in the industry, to me, is differentiating. And it is very important. And you have to sincerely get behind that as an employee for any company that you work at in order to do right by the company and right by the employees. But I do actually think that's a big part of who and what Microsoft is today. And it's really important that we retain that. And I think we increase our presence there as we go, not just the next 5 years. And I truly believe that's a differentiator for us.
And moving forward, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs and especially to female founders looking to start and scale their enterprises?
Go for it, man. Don't let anything stop you. I think, I think having the passion behind solving whatever problem or creating whatever value it is that you have found, I encourage you to go at it with everything you've got, and things will not always go your way. But that's where the wonderful virtue of resilience comes in. And it's also part of life, is learning how to adjust and adapt as you go. But if you've got a great idea, you should absolutely go for it, because you never know, you might just change the world.
Is Microsoft currently investing in startups?
Yes, we have an entire ventures organization we call M12 that does investments across the globe.
Well, Charlotte, thanks so much for your time, and we wish you best luck at Microsoft in the future.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.